People have been making and gathering salt for thousands of years. From the mountains of Mexico to the deep caves of Pakistan and the sands of Bali. These are some of the rarest kinds of salt in the world.
Indigenous people have been harvesting salt by hand in this part of Mexico for over 2,000 years. But today, half of these salt pools are abandoned. Unlike table salt, this artisanal variety is unrefined and made in small batches. But the work pays little, and many producers can't afford to carry on the tradition. Those who do remain often work alone, in a last effort to save this piece of their heritage.
O sea, el que quiere el lugar, yo creo que se podría morir, ¿no? de que le quitaran su trabajo.
We visited Zapotitlan Salinas to see how one salt producer's business is still standing. Juan Diego Hernández Cortez works on his land 7 days a week, all by himself.
No es redituable como tal, o sea, como para contratar a alguien, ¿no? Como para traer a algún ayudante.
The mountains here were once under a sea, so they're full of salt deposits. When it rains, water carries that salt down to these natural wells. Then Juan collects it.
Cada pozo tiene diferente concentración, no todos tienen la misma salinidad.
Juan carries about 40 pounds of salt water over the rocky hills, barefoot for better traction. He fills one of the man-made pools and cleans another to prepare for the filtration process. Then he pushes all the water into the cleaned pool.
Una vez que se pasó el agua para acá, aquí se queda un día o 2 días y entonces ya el lodo se queda abajo, se sedimenta.
Little by little, he transfers the water back into the empty pool through a mesh bag.
Y hacemos este filtrado para que la basura que tiene ahí es la que se va a quedar aquí. Entonces ya pasa el agua filtrada a donde ya va a empezar a cristalizar.
The liquid sits for at least 5 days, evaporating under the sun.
Empieza a formar capas de sal, un cristalizado que se forma superficial, y le echar el agua encima con una jícara del mismo cuadro y acumular capas de sal abajo.
A new layer crystallizes each day. Once there are enough, Juan shovels the crystals into a mound. He uses his feet to break down the big pieces, which aren't too sharp when they're wet. Then he piles the salt into a basket, which works like a colander, draining out all the moisture. It stays out in the sun to dry for 4 or 5 days. After it's cleaned and packaged, it sells to locals for around 10 pesos a liter, or 50 cents. He sells higher quality salt to restaurants and tourists for 30 pesos a liter, or a little more than $1. Artisanal salt like this is sought after for its unique flavor and natural properties.
No lleva ningún químico, solamente son minerales que dejó el mar hace millones de años atrapados en la tierra.
You can't find that in industrialized salt, which is often mined from underground deposits and processed to remove other minerals and add preservatives. Juan makes salt for cattle to eat too. It's drier and more bitter than human salt. It also requires extra mixing and grinding, using a stick made from an agave plant. It can take 2 months to get the cattle salt to this stage. But for all the salt Juan makes, consistent weather is crucial. That's why he only harvests during the dry season.
Si cae la lluvia y es una lluvia fuerte, esto se echa a perder. Todo lo que está ahí en sal se derrite. Hoy en día ha habido muchos cambios de clima y hoy puede llover en cualquier momento.
Between cattle salt and human salt, Juan sells about 3 tons every 6 weeks, bringing in around 2,500 pesos, or $116 per week. Juan learned the trade from his father, who learned it from his father. He's been spending long days here since he was just about 6 years old.
Incluso en algún momento, como yo era pequeño, yo le decía a mi papá, ¿ya nos vamos? Y mi papá decía, no, todavía no, hasta que cante el grillo. Sí, lo quiero mucho porque es herencia y porque he estado toda la vida aquí. Entonces, para mí sería todo, ¿no?
Zapotitlan is located in Puebla, and it was engulfed in a sea 50 million years ago. That sea left behind salt deposits that indigenous people started harvesting at least 2,000 years ago by heating salt water in clay pots. By the 16th century, solar evaporation became the more efficient and widely used approach. Salt production boomed along with Zapotitlan's economy toward the end of the 19th century, when travelers would pass through town along part of the historic trail El Camino Real. But after the Mexican Revolution in the early 1900s, the indigenous people of Zapotitlan lost half of their land. Plus, many young workers who went to fight never returned. Today, around 60 salt producers are left, and at 41 years old, Juan is one of the youngest. He says nowadays, Zapotitlan salt is underappreciated.
No la conoce y no lo valora, no lo paga, pues como debería de ser. Y para nosotros como productores, no es redituable, ¿no?
Many property owners can't afford to maintain the salt pools, and local indigenous laws prevent them from selling to anyone outside the community. So half the land sits unused.
Si se dan cuenta, igual mucho del lugar o de lo que es cada salina, se ven muchas como ruinas. No alcanza para vivir de esto y menos para reconstruir, ¿no? O reparar esta estructura, ya que todo es muy caro.
Many in the community have left to look for other work.
Pues no es tan fácil, ¿no? Trabajar aquí para en algún momento tener familia, pues nos vive uno de esto, ¿no? Entonces, si hablamos de la comunidad, es pequeña, más o menos 3,000 habitantes, pero alrededor de 1,000 jóvenes están en el extranjero.
But Juan plans to stay and build towards a better future. He's banding together with 25 other producers to form a brand, which will help them sell the salt at a higher price. They've also learned how to deliver their products during the pandemic. Juan remains hopeful that the artisanal salt industry in Zapotitlan will be revived.
Yo lo veo a futuro y tiende a regresar, ¿no? Que la gente vuelva a voltear a consumir lo natural, ¿no? Lo orgánico como eso, ¿no? Lo artesanal. Y tengo esa como visión, ¿no? Que a futuro la gente va a comprarlo, va a valorarlo. E incluso también muchos jóvenes o hasta familias podrían regresar al trabajo.
Himalayan salt doesn't actually come from the Himalayas. It's mined 186 miles away in Pakistan. Thanks to its pink hue and supposed health benefits, the salt has exploded in popularity since the late 2000s. Today, it's turned into lamps, statues, and of course, table salt. But extracting the coveted salt means descending into dark caves, then blasting and carrying heavy rock.
अच्छा, हमें प्रॉब्लम जो माइंस से आता है, जो ब्लॉक्स के जो साइजेस होते हैं, बेसिकली हमारे पास इतनी अच्छी फैसिलिटीज़ नहीं है हमारी माइंस के अंदर कि हम जो ब्लॉक्स को बहुत अच्छी तरीके से उसको एक्सट्रैक्ट कर सकें.
We went inside the mine, turning this mountain into 400,000 tons of pink salt each year. The Keora salt mine, here in the Punjab region of Pakistan, is the second largest salt mine in the world. The pink salt comes from remnants of ancient seabeds that crystallized 600 million years ago. Legend has it, it was actually Alexander the Great's horse that first discovered these salt rocks when it stopped to take a lick. Then, under British rule, salt mining ramped up in the 1870s. Today, it's a popular tourist destination and a working mine, producing the majority of the world's pink salt. All the mining starts here, at the train station. This train takes miners deep into the mountain. Here, tunnels stretch for 25 miles, and it's always 64 degrees Fahrenheit.
माइन के टोटल 17 लेवल हैं, इसके 70 लेवल हैं, 5 लेवल इसके ऊपर चल रहे हैं, 6 ये ग्राउंड फ्लोर है और 11 इसके नीचे है.
300 miners work these dark chambers. They've used many of the same mining tools for over a century: pickaxes, hand drills, and gunpowder.
सबसे पहले हमने ड्रिलिंग की है. ड्रिलिंग यहाँ पे हैंड आगर के जरिए करते हैं. उसके बाद हमने गन पाउडर के जरिए पैकिंग की है. फिर सेफ्टी फ्यूज के जरिए हमने इसको इग्नाइट किया है. और साल्ट की ब्लास्टिंग हो चुकी है।
खबरदार आप सब सेट पे हो जाएं। खबरदार आप सब सेट पे हो जाएं।
इसके बाद हम एक महफूज टाइम जो आधा घंटा कम से कम होना चाहिए, उसके बाद हम उसकी साल्टिंग और लोडिंग स्टार्ट कर देंगे।
Miners will spend up to 8 hours underground at a time.
ज़ाहिर बात है हम मैन के नीचे काम करें तकरीबन 30-40 फुट है। हार्ड तो है लेकिन यहाँ पे मजदूरी अच्छी और वक्त पे मिल जाती है।
Only half of the mountain salt is actually mined. The rest is used for structural support, so the chambers don't collapse. Tractors haul the mined salt out of the mountain. Each day, miners excavate over 1,000 tons of salt, or about the weight of 157 elephants. Outside, they search for blocks with the best shape and coloring to send to manufacturers. Once picked, the blocks are loaded up on trucks either by hand or crane and sent across Pakistan. Historically, Pakistan couldn't process this raw pink salt, so much of it was exported to India cheaply. India would treat the salt, label it as made in India, and sell it at a premium. Pakistan saw little of the profits. NPR reported that a ton of salt sold to India for $40 could fetch $300 in Europe. In 2019, a social media campaign calling for the end of salt exports to India went viral. That same year, the Pakistani government banned all salt exports to India. The goal? Returning the profits to Pakistan.
23% जो रॉक सॉल्ट की मैन्युफैक्चरिंग थी या जो प्रोडक्शन थी जो पाकिस्तान की, वो इंडिया को हम एक्सपोर्ट करते थे रॉ फॉर्म में, जो कि फिर वो री एक्सपोर्ट होती थी ओवरसीज़ में सेम मार्केट में जहां हम ऑलरेडी अभी एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं राइट नाउ। गवर्नमेंट का डिसीजन ये बहुत फ़ायदेमंद है हमारे लिए।
But some Pakistani salt exporters suffered. They didn't speak English and couldn't meet Europe's tough import standards. Only about a dozen exporters saw an opportunity to sell products under Pakistani labels directly to Europe. Mohammed was one of them. Every month he purchases 300 tons of salt from the mine for his company Himalayan Decor International.
ख्योरा माइंड से तकरीबन सॉल्ट लोड होता है ट्रकों में और मुख्तलिफ ट्रकों में लोड होके बारास्ता मोटरवे हमारी फैक्ट्री लाहौर काना डिफेंस रोड पे आता है, जिसका सफ़र 350 किलोमीटर बनता है।
His artists turn these blocks into more than 200 different products.
जैसे कि नेचुरल सॉल्ट लैंप है, इसके साथ साथ ज्योमेट्रिकल शेप्स हैं, एनिमल लिंक सॉल्ट है, ईटिंग कुकिंग प्लेट्स हैं, इसके साथ साथ वॉल्स की जो सी टाइल्स होती हैं वो हम लोग बना रहे हैं। इसके साथ हम लोग ईटिंग सॉल्ट के अंदर काम कर रहे हैं काफ़ी सारा।
Most of the work is done by hand, but drills and saws have sped up the process in recent years.
उसके बाद उसकी क्वालिटी को चेक किया जाता है, चेक करने के बाद उसकी वॉशिंग होती है, वॉशिंग के बाद उसके अंदर बल्ब और उसके अंदर वुडन बेस इंस्टॉल करके उसको पैकिंग के मराहिल में लेके आया जाता है। हमारे पास तकरीबन महीने के अंदर 10 से 15 हज़ार सॉल्ट लैंप्स की प्रोडक्शन है।
Over in Karachi, RM Salt Pakistan grinds up blocks into table salt.
बेसिकली ये इसका रॉ मटेरियल है जो कि डिफरेंट साइजेस में आप देख सकते हैं। यहाँ पर कुछ रेंजेस हैं 2 to 3 kg, 3 to 5 kg, और ये हमारी लार्ज साइड पर आ जाता है, जैसे 9 to 12 हो गया और 12 to 15 kg हो गया। ये रेंजेस में होते हैं बेसिकली।
Blocks are fed into the grinder and broken down into smaller grains. Workers bag and weigh 1,000 of these pouches of pink salt every hour. Like Mohammed's factory, RM Salt also makes lamps and other specialty products.
After the raw material we get, we convert it with a different shape as per our order. Like you can see in the cutting machine, he is cutting different sizes.
On this saw, water prevents dust from flying up, but on the grinders it's not possible, which is why Mohammed's staff wore masks even before the pandemic. Over at RM Salt,
As you can see this facility, we have installed a vacuum through which we can absorb the dust. This is the order of USA, one of our client. We are making these goods for them, the moon shape and the heart shape as well. डबल ड्रिल के बाद हम लोग इसको वॉशिंग प्रोसेस से गुजारते हैं, क्योंकि इसमें हमें मैनुअली काम करना पड़ता है। उसकी वजह है कि इसके साइजेस जो है वो डिफरेंट होते हैं।
the lamps are then coated with a gel to prevent humidity from interacting with the salt, and then they're shrink wrapped. RM Salt ships 30 containers of products every month. Mohammed exports about 80% of his products, primarily to Western countries like the US, UK, and Spain, where demand has spiked in the last decade because of the alleged health benefits.
यहाँ पर 3 कलर का नमक है, वाइट है, रेड है और पिंक है। इसके अंदर वाइट के अंदर है सोडियम क्लोराइड, पिंक के अंदर मैग्नीशियम है और रेड में आयरन शामिल है।
98% तो ये सोडियम क्लोराइड ही है, NaCl ही है, जो कि नॉर्मली सी सॉल्ट भी है, लेकिन इसके एडिशनली जो बेनिफिट्स हैं वो 84 मिनरल्स जो इसमें होते हैं, जैसे कि कैल्शियम है, मैग्नीशियम है, पोटेशियम है।
However, It's such a very small percentage of the salt that makes up these minerals that you are highly unlikely to get any real benefit or any trace of them in your regular serving of salt itself. But nutritionally, it's pretty much similar to regular salt.
It's also pretty similar tasting to sea salt. But others claim Himalayan salt has healing powers, whether inhaled, used in spa treatments, or in lamp form.
There's a lot of different homeopathic remedies that can seem very, very appealing, but actually they're not grounded in evidence.
And it's these false health claims that have driven the price up. Himalayan salt can cost up to 20 times the price of normal table salt.
Normally जो price start होती है pink salt pouch की, वो normally एक manufacturer से वो 60 cents से शुरू होती है और एक मैं 1 kg बैग की बात कर रहा हूँ जो कि सेल होता है रिटेल मार्केट्स में अराउंड $9 होता है.
But that money doesn't always make it back to the miners. They take home less than 1,500 rupees a day, not much more than the cost of this bag of Himalayan sea salt at Walmart. And those salaries have stayed the same, even though Pakistan has severed its salty relationship with India, and the pink salt is seeing growing demand abroad.
पिंक सॉल्ट की डिमांड इस टाइम पूरी दुनिया में दिन ब दिन बढ़ रही है. मेरा नहीं ख्याल कि इसकी खरीदो फरोख्त में कहीं पे कोई कमी आई है. क्यों कि लोग इसको बेशुमार इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं और दिन ब दिन इसकी फरोख्त बढ़ रही है.
Luckily, the mountain won't run out of salt anytime soon. It's estimated only about 220 million tons of salt have been excavated here, nothing compared to the nearly 6.7 billion tons left. Salt from Bali's beaches is some of the rarest in the world. It's also some of the most natural. But harvesting it takes patience and a huge amount of strength. Nangapura is 45 years old, and she's one of the last salt farmers here in the seaside village of Kusamba. She spends her days carrying baskets full of seawater and pouring them on the volcanic sand to filter out the salt. But salt farmers make so little that most have left the business for better paying jobs at nearby hotels and tourist spots. We traveled to Kusamba in Bali to see how this salt farming tradition is still standing. Tourists visit Kusamba and nearby regions for their famous volcanic sands. But for Nunga's family, they've been an essential source of income for at least 4 generations. She starts her day at 6 in the morning, leveling sand for about an hour. It's no easy task, even for Nunga, who's been doing this since she was just 15 years old. She and her husband make up to 40 round trips every day to collect water from the ocean. The baskets of seawater can weigh 66 pounds. Even on a calm day like today, it's hard to keep the balance against a swelling tide. So she tries to collect water from smaller waves. After 30 years, she can go back and forth for hours without a break, even as temperatures reach as high as 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The manual labor drove some farmers to replace the buckets for machines that can pump that much water in just minutes. But Nunga hasn't installed one yet. This fine volcanic sand sets Kusamba farmed salt apart from other kinds, like that from salt ponds or rock deposits. It absorbs the water fast, like a natural sieve, leaving sun-baked salt flakes on the surface. Nunga is careful to spread the water evenly, because the salt won't crystallize if there's too much water in one area. On a sunny day like today, the water will dry by the afternoon, and she collects it immediately. Most of the tools they use are made from local resources, like this wooden rake. But it's an industry dependent on the fickle weather. Farmers can spend weeks without income during the rainy season between October and April. And erosion is slowly swallowing up this beach. Kusamba's beach coastline shrank 32.74 meters in just 7 years. That's nearly 5 meters a year, the second worst rate in this region of Bali. It's forced many farmers to rely on man-made sea defenses.
Kinyindirin pang tan ngelompat, iya pasti meriki gitu, angon tanggul gitu.
All this risk and uncertainty is why Nunga's husband has taken a second job in construction, and why the couple doesn't want their 2 children following them into the salt fields.
Panak dia ni kayak kalian tan gai, nanti pasti dalam jauh nanti pasti, ada yang tujuan tu.
Still, Nunga says she enjoys it, and she works hard to maintain the business she inherited from her ancestors.
Demen gai nguyah, sing ada gai len bin ni duen demeni.
Nunga filters the salt in her hut. She uses seawater to flush all of the salt from the sand and runs it through a filtration system 3 times until the salt is pure. She pours the concentrated salt water into these troughs. They're called balung, and they're what give the salt its name. Traditional ones are made from coconut tree trunks. But Nunga also uses these synthetic sheets that help the water dry faster. This is the only part of the process that she's modernized. More and more, farmers have been switching to these because they're cheaper and don't leak. But farmers like I, Wayan, Rena think it's important to stick to this traditional palung.
Harus kembali ke palung. Nah, itulah yang disebut organik. Itulah yang disebut alami. Alat jemurnya.
Balung like these can last up to 30 years. This kind of solar evaporation is one of the oldest and most traditional techniques of harvesting salt. In about 1 or 2 days, the water will be gone, leaving behind pyramid-shaped crystals. The natural sea salt is said to be higher in nutritional value than the average table salt, which is often heavily refined. Farmers describe the flavor as subtle and not overwhelmingly salty. And this is the only salt Nunga grew up eating. While Indonesia has one of the longest coastlines in the world, bad weather and coastal changes have affected salt production. Kusamba farmers typically produce between 300 and 600 kilograms of salt a month. But Indonesia imports about 2 million tons of cheaper salt every year, meaning the farmers have stiff competition. Farmers sell 1 kilo of balung dried salt for about $2. That's more than 3 times the price of mass-produced salt sold in most grocery stores, making it a luxury item for the majority of people. That leaves farmers with unsold stock. Wayan leads a network for local salt farmers, and he helps artisans like Nunga sell their salt. Salt farmers have been turning to tourists who are willing to pay for more than just the salt itself.
Yang tamu dia cari apanya yang cari? Kan tradisinya. Bukan garamnya yang dia beli mahal. Karena cara pembuatannya masih tradisi.
The decline of tourism during the pandemic was a major setback for them. And without the promise of a consistent livable wage, this generation of farmers could be the last to continue this trade.
Bapak berusaha untuk membangkitkan anak-anak muda. Mulai sekarang mudah-mudahan lah. Kenapa? Karena Bapak ingin melestarikan warisan.
Kusamba salt farmers received a geographical indication certificate from the Indonesian government in early 2022. It recognizes that a product comes from a particular place and has a unique reputation because of that. Farmers hope the international prestige of the certificate will boost export sales.
Nah, Bapak yakin untuk ke depan pasti akan cerah.
Banten kadikuangan uyah sambil berusaha dan bang ada nak nyusukin. Kada cakapang mau nak nyakap, mau nak depang aja. Tadi dak.
This is standard sea salt. But after 30 days, it'll become this. High-quality bamboo salt costs almost $100 for an 8.5-ounce jar, making it the most expensive salt in the world. So what is bamboo salt used for? And why is it so expensive? For hundreds of years, Koreans have used bamboo salt for cooking and as a form of traditional medicine. It's made by placing sea salt inside of bamboo and roasting it at a high temperature. The goal is to infuse the salt with minerals from the bamboo and to remove any impurities. But the premium compared to other types of salt is steep. 9 times roasted bamboo salt, sometimes referred to as purple bamboo salt, can cost over 10 times the price of pink Himalayan salt. Most of that cost comes from the labor-intensive process. Every single step is done by hand.
처음 천일염을 대나무통에 넣어서 맨 마지막 9번째 용융을 해서 완제품 포장이 될 때까지 한 달에서 한 달 45일 정도, 50일 정도, 이 정도 기간이 소요되고 있습니다.
The process starts by cutting 3-year-old bamboo into uniform trunks, leaving one side closed as a container for the salt. Sea salt from the west coast of Korea is densely packed by hand into the bamboo. Workers load filled bamboo onto a cart and push it into a kiln. Traditionally, only pine logs are used. This process takes around 12 to 14 hours. Baking everything at over 800 degrees Celsius burns away the bamboo, leaving a column of salt. But the process has only just begun.
그 다음에 그것을 소금 기둥을 다시 분쇄해서 대나무 채우는 것을 2번, 그것을 반복해서 하는 것이 8번을 하는 거죠.
The 9th and final roast is the hottest, at over 1,000 degrees Celsius. It's fired in a special kiln and operated by an expert. Shin Tae-jun has been making bamboo salt for over 20 years. That experience is extremely important because any error at this stage could result in wasting a month of work. At this temperature, the salt and bamboo completely melt and drain into a mold. After a few days of cooling, a blackened, rock-like structure remains. This is 9 times roasted bamboo salt. Workers carefully break this down by hand, trying not to waste any material. After a month of work, it's ready to be packaged and sold.
천일염을 대나무통에 넣고 굽게 되면은 천일염 속에 있는 안 좋은 것들, 미세 플라스틱이라든지 천일염 속에 안 좋은 것들을 많이 순화시키는 과정을 거치게 되고요. 그리고 대나무가 타면서 대나무 기름이 나오게 됩니다. 그 대나무 기름을 소금이 자꾸 흡수해서 그 대나무 속에 있는 좋은 성분들을 소금이 점점 농축하게 되는 거고요.
The final price varies depending on where you buy it and what form it's in. But 9 times roasted bamboo salt doesn't come cheap.
죽염을 이제 맨 마지막 9번째까지 구워진 죽염 기준으로 말씀을 드리면 키로당 한 20만 원 정도에서 한 25만 원 선, 이 정도 가격을 생각하시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 죽염이 비싼 거는 한국 사람들도 동일하게 인지를 하고 있는 거고요. 그 가치를 알기 때문에 죽염이 비싸더라도 믿고 또 구입하신다고 믿고 구입한다고 생각합니다.
The health benefits of food have always played an important role in Korean culture. For centuries, bamboo salt baked 2 to 3 times has been used in traditional Korean medicine. But in the 20th century, the 9 times roasting process was developed. Manufacturers say this process is the lowest toxicity and highest mineral content. Today, it's used for cooking, toothpaste, soap, and various remedies.
일단은 죽염도 소금이다 보니까 짠맛은 있고요. 짜면서도 죽염만의 또 독특한 맛이 있어요. 그 대나무 속에 있는 좋은 성분들을 소금이 자꾸 흡수하면서 죽염의 독특한 계란 노른자 맛 같은 맛이 많이 구워진 걸수록 점점 진해지게 되고요. 그다음에 쓴맛은 없고 계란 노른자 같은 그런 맛이 점점.
Proponents of bamboo salt say that it can help with everything from digestion to oral health, skincare, and inflammation, and that it even has anti-cancer effects. The proposed medical benefits have likely helped it maintain its high price, but there hasn't been enough scientific study to fully back up all of these claims. Studies have shown that bamboo salt contains higher levels of iron, potassium, and calcium compared to regular sea salt, and that it could improve your immune system. But these beneficial minerals constitute only a small percentage. The majority of bamboo salt is sodium chloride. Even with lower toxicity, it's unclear how potent the health benefits are. In 2016, the WHO wrote in a report that the composition of specialty salts poses no toxicological risks, but does not offer any relevant nutritional benefits either. The full benefits of bamboo salt compared to sea salt have yet to be extensively researched. But despite that, bamboo salt continues to be popular. Insanga, a popular bamboo salt maker, earned around $24 million in sales in 2017. And the traditional labor-intensive process isn't likely to change anytime soon.